what you're looking at is a mobile seismic station funded by the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority, both West and East Bank authorities. Here on the ground we have a miniature setup of what we use to determine the engineering properties of the soils underneath the levees. We have a small seismic snake consisting of sensors and radio transmitters that can beam back the information to the seismic recording station in the back. We simulate small earthquakes with this seismic source in the front. We put it in the box for safety. And the rate at which these seismic waves travel through the earth tells us the integrity of the soils, the engineering properties of the soils underneath the levees. That information is important because it allows us to circle hotspots of anomalies of areas that are weaker than other parts of the levees, and we can pass this information to the proper engineering authorities to design a preventive maintenance program.
What we're showing with the bump and echo technique that Dr. Lorenzo just demonstrated is that we have a way to directly detect what's going on underneath our feet, and that's very exciting, and it helps us go on the offense instead of playing defense with flood protection.
And how is this a break from previous traditions pre-Katrina?
Well, previously we didn't have a direct way to check the rapidly changing geological circumstances and different types of weak soils we might have underneath the projects we were building. And now we have that important tool in our toolbox. I'm very grateful that you're here because the purpose of this program, sponsored by the Louisiana Geological Survey, the New Orleans Geological Society, and both flood authorities, East and West, is to bring to the public and the commissioners the latest geological research about flood protection before we're very far advanced in the hurricane season. And this is our 4th annual, and we're very glad to have you here and folks listening at home.
It's vitally important to the projects because what we're doing is we're building these projects atop of old alluvial plains, and we need to know what is below the surface when we're planning to build these structures to make sure that they survive. The East and the West Authority were created after Hurricane Katrina, and we've been, seen it as a mandate by the public that we work closely together, and we have been coordinating, and this is an example of the coordination. We are both sponsoring this symposium, and this is just an example of the way we're working together.
We happened to have our own natural disaster in New Orleans, of course, in 2005. Tulane was closed for that entire semester, so I had a lot of time on my hands. And being a geologist primarily, and most people would say I'm a volcanologist, but I'm primarily a geologist, I spent a lot of time going out and trying to figure out what geologic factors were responsible for the things that happened during Hurricane Katrina.
I'm trying to let people know that there's a paradigm shift in the presentation that I'm making today, and that a lot of what people know about the coast as far as subsidence and what is causing it isn't really what's causing it. And what I think is really happening is we're looking at a tremendous amount of faulting and regional subsidence from the weight of the Mississippi River sediment that's depressing the crust and activating these faults. And so it's like we're all on elevators within elevators. So when we're looking at things like the subsidence inside levees, that's one kind of subsidence that's going on in one elevator, but there's a bigger one going down outside. And that's the regional geologic elevator, and that's the regional tectonics.
Terrebonne Parish is virtually an oil field. I can remember when it peaked back in the 40s and 50s, you could drive around at night and everywhere you looked it was a drilling rig. But and most of you who study geology know that the most subsidence occurs when you're sitting right over the area. And when we get to the one of these Bayou Blue, you'll see where the subsidence was a little bit different. Chauvin is Laperouse Field. I don't know how many wells are there, but I'll find out later. 1940 It went from 5.6 feet by 1960 down to 3 feet. Then you see it's tapered off up to 2000. And we also have some line graphs. I don't have them here today, but they clearly show an interaction because the lines crisscross. And my daughter Melinda said that's interactive. And what we're seeing is a slowing down on here. And look at Grand Kaya. I know this area, that's where I live, and I'm 3 feet lower than when I bought the property in 1968. Subsidence caused by withdrawal of hydrocarbons and, of course, the accompanying water. And in the study that I did, I found that production has slowed down, and so has the subsidence. And I've got some graphs, and it clearly shows an interaction for this. It's a very brief and simple concept. All I did was compare elevation statistics through the years and to production in the same time span.
I would like the people to keep in mind the fact that we have to be ever vigilant with the, shall we say, the powers that be that administer our levees around the city and around South Louisiana. We want people to be very, very always conscious of the fragile nature in the environment. We know there are people up in Washington who really think that we ought to abandon New Orleans, abandon all of South Louisiana, south of Interstate 10. But we can't do that. We're not ready for that yet. Maybe not for another century or two.
There's an ongoing debate in the field about whether global warming is going to increase the intensity of hurricanes. There's pretty good evidence it does. It's not completely decided yet, but it seems to be most people are leaning in that direction. So maybe a little bit fewer hurricanes, but more intense.
I want our public to know that they have a role to play in their own safety, and they need to take that responsibility for themselves. And as far as what I want Congress to know, I want Congress to know that their investment in this community is not going to be wasted. We'll do our part, and they need to continue to help us achieve a higher level of protection.
I think Louisiana's done an outstanding job, leading the nation perhaps, in putting, we've had a problem in our country, in my opinion, with science advising public policies. And we've gotten a little lost since the days of the space race when there were science advisors in the White House. But Louisiana has led the way since the post-Katrina reforms by placing experts in charge of the hurricane defenses in the New Orleans trade area. And I just think that, I don't know why that's not on the front page of Governing Magazine. It's an enormous accomplishment and a great thing. And all of our commissioners, as I mentioned, were serving voluntarily. These are not salaried jobs. It's a kind of a labor of love and a chance for commissioners to give back to the community. And I'm very glad to have this chance.
What benefits have you seen so far?
Well, for one thing, I think we have a better understanding because of these symposiums and because of the hard work that we've been doing on the authority. Well, one example, on the West Bank in this jurisdiction, when the new commissioners were seated, approximately 19 months after Katrina, the defenses that had been 4.5 feet in a critical area had subsided to less than 2 feet in 3 places. And we had a chance to present that at our confirmation hearings to the legislature. They were very supportive and helpful. We came up with a 100% Louisiana-funded solution for interim defenses. We were ready a year before Gustav arrived with 8 feet or more, and Gustav delivered a 7.5-foot storm surge against those interim defenses that we built together. So that's a success story, and that's the kind of benefits we're enjoying, and we're still trying and we're still working hard, and we still have some challenges.